Tonight's theme is the internet, the part of it that watches back. These are 3 accounts sent in by viewers who made contact with someone online and couldn't explain, afterward, what that person actually was. The third story, I want to warn you about the third story. A woman in rural Oregon spent 6 months talking to someone she believed was a friend. What she found on her own computer, at the end of those 6 months, is the reason she no longer owns one. Stay with me. The account with my father's name. My dad passed in March of 2019. Pancreatic cancer. 11 weeks from diagnosis to the end, which is about how long that particular thing gives you. I was 26. Living in a 1-bedroom in Akron, Ohio. Working dispatch for a towing company, which meant overnight shifts, a lot of empty hours between calls, a lot of time on my phone. I'm not proud of what I was doing in those months. Grief makes you search. I was going through his old Facebook page, reading comments he'd left on other people's photos, just to see his words moving around in my head again. His username was Raymunden1961. His profile picture was him at my cousin's wedding, laughing at something off camera. In July, for months after he died, I got a friend request. The account name was Raymunden1961. I sat in the dispatch booth for a long time just holding my phone. The profile picture was a grey silhouette. No posts. No friends listed. Created, according to Facebook, in June 2019. I told myself someone had cloned his account. It happens. Scammers do it, they copy a dead person's profile and target grieving family members. I knew this. I worked myself through it logically. I declined the request. 3 days later, a message arrived in my message requests folder. It said, *, you look tired on Tuesday. Are you sleeping, *? I had work Tuesday. The overnight. I remember because it had been slow and I'd spent most of it sitting in the booth under the fluorescent light, exactly the way I always did. The booth has one window. It faces the parking lot. I called my sister. She hadn't received a request. I called my aunt. Same. I went through my dad's Facebook contacts. Nobody in his circle had gotten anything from that account except me. I reported it. Facebook removed it within 48 hours. 2 weeks later, a different account. Different name, nothing connected to my dad. A profile with photos, a history, mutual friends I didn't recognize. It sent me a message that said only, *, I'm sorry. I just wanted to check on you. I blocked it without responding. I still work dispatch. I've put a piece of electrical tape over the inside of that window, the one that faces the parking lot. I know how that sounds. I've never been able to find out who ran either account. I've never been able to explain the mutual friends, real-looking profiles, all of them, none of them connected to anyone I actually know. My dad used to check on people. It was the thing about him. He'd call when he sensed something was off, even before you said anything. I think about that more than I'd like to. The next account comes from someone who took much longer to notice the pattern, and by the time he did, he'd already told the stranger quite a lot. He only typed when I was alone. This was a Discord server for an indie tabletop RPG, a small game with maybe 400 players worldwide. The server had about 200 members. You could see who was online, who was in which channel. The usual. I'm a high school art teacher in Flagstaff, Arizona. This was 2 winters ago, November through January, which in Flagstaff means dark by 5, cold enough to keep you inside. My roommate had moved out in October. I was alone in the house more than I'd ever been. User joined in mid-November. Handle was Callum_Gray. No profile picture, no server history. Just appeared one day in the general channel and said hello. He was pleasant. Smart about the game. We started chatting in DMs, which happens on small servers, it's not unusual. We'd talk for an hour or two most evenings. He never asked for personal information. Never pushed anything. Just conversation. I noticed the pattern in December, almost by accident. I was grading papers at my kitchen table on a Friday night. My phone was in the other room. I wasn't logged into Discord on my computer. The house was quiet. I picked up my phone around 9 and saw that Callum had sent 3 messages, timestamped between 7 and 8:30, and gone offline. The messages were normal. How was my week? He'd been reading a book I'd mentioned once. But here's what I noticed. I scrolled back through 2 months of logs. Every time Callum had initiated conversation, every single time, it was on an evening when I was alone in the house. The nights my colleague came for dinner, nothing. The weekend I visited my parents in Phoenix, nothing. The evenings I'd stayed late at school for the winter showcase, nothing. Every message, every check-in, every late-night conversation, all of them happened when there was no one else there. I don't know how to explain that. I had not shared my schedule with him. I had not mentioned my roommate leaving. I told him I was a teacher but not where. I'd kept things vague, it's just habit. I asked him about it directly. Sent a message asking how he always seemed to know when to reach out. He replied after a few minutes. He said, I don't know. I just get a feeling. He's been offline since January. Account still exists. Last active, January 14th. January 14th was the first night my new roommate moved in. I've never found a Callum Gray anywhere else online. I've looked. That last detail, the mutual friends, the window, the timing, sometimes the shape of a thing is more disturbing than the thing itself. The final story is different. The stranger in this one was never outside the screen, which somehow makes it worse. What she left open on the screen. I need to start by saying that I am not a fearful person. I'm a 41-year-old occupational therapist. I live outside Grants Pass, Oregon, rural, forested, the kind of place where your nearest neighbor is a 10-minute drive. I've lived here for 12 years. I'm not afraid of quiet. In the spring of last year I joined an online writing group. Fiction. Small, maybe 15 members, all adults, all serious about the work. We shared drafts in a private forum, gave feedback, talked craft. I became friendly with a member who went by the name Eel Marsh. Eel Marsh's writing was extraordinary. Literary, precise, unsettling in a quiet way that I admired. I assumed she, from the prose voice, was private. Never shared personal details. But the feedback she gave me was so specific, so attuned to what I was actually trying to do, that I felt genuinely seen by it. We moved to email. Then to a private messaging app called Wire, which a few of us used for longer conversations. She was thoughtful. Patient. We talked about writing, about living alone, about the particular quality of silence in a wooded place. She said she understood that silence. She said she knew exactly what I meant. 6 months in October, my computer started behaving strangely. Folders I hadn't opened. Browser tabs I didn't remember leaving up. I assumed I was tired, or that something was updating in the background. I work long hours. I attributed it to myself. Then in November I found the folder. It was nested inside a folder inside another folder, a path I would never have navigated to intentionally. Inside it were images. Photographs. Of my house. Of the exterior, the tree line behind it, the road approaching it from the east. Taken at different times of day, a morning light, overcast afternoon, the blue-gray of dusk. 43 photographs, all of them dated across the 6 months I'd been talking to E. Marsh. I want to be precise about this, I did not take these photographs. I do not own a camera. My phone was checked, they were not in my phone's camera roll, not backed up to any cloud account I own. They were on my computer. In a folder I did not create. I contacted the writing group's administration. E. Marsh's account was deleted before he could investigate, deleted cleanly, no trace of the post she'd made, as though the account had never existed. Other members remembered her. No one had her contact information. Wire showed the conversation history on my end. Her side, her username, her messages, was gone. I could see my own words, talking to nothing. I had my computer examined by someone local who understands these things. He found evidence of remote access software, installed the previous spring. He said whoever had access had it for a long time. He asked me who I'd let onto my Wi-Fi. I told him no one had been inside this house in over a year. He didn't say anything to that. He just closed his laptop. I still live here. I don't know what else to do, it's my home. But I've thought about those photographs every day since November. 43 of them. All exterior shots. Not one of them taken from the road. They were taken from the tree line. 3 people. 3 strangers from the internet who knew things they shouldn't have known and disappeared before any explanation was possible. What stays with me tonight, and most nights, is not the dramatic moments. It's the quiet ones. The message that came in while someone sat alone under a fluorescent light. The folder inside the folder. The photographs taken from the trees. I want to ask you something directly. Have you ever gotten a message, an interaction online, where something was slightly off, and you couldn't name what it was? Leave it in the comments. Be specific. The details matter. New stories come to this channel every day. If you want them, subscribe. It costs you nothing. And tonight, before you close the app, take a look at the accounts that follow you. The ones you don't remember accepting.